I'm really excited to be reunited. Well, we haven't met yet, but I'm excited for us to be reunited.
I feel like I already know you though.
I feel like I know you from NAPS and from you.
Yeah.
But to give some context and background on like why we're speaking about what we're going to talk about today and your guys' knowledge on the topic, I would love to hear the journey of how you founded NAPS, because I'm actually fascinated. Like, I know this story and it still blows my mind, and what NAPS actually is.
Yeah.
And am I right in you call it NAPS, right?
We call it NAPS.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
We started it originally under the name Boston NAPS because we were in Boston. But and funny enough, when we first registered for the LLC, I registered under the DBA, like just NAPS.
Mm-hmm.
This was 13 plus
Always
years ago
thinking
now.
ahead this one.
Because I was like, we're not only going to ever be in like, just
No,
Boston.
you go, girl.
Anyway, would you like me to lead the charge on our origin story?
Well,
No. So Emily and I are both nurses. I'm a registered nurse. Emily's a family nurse practitioner. We're both board certified lactation consultants, moms. We'll get into that in a
All
second.
the things. Yeah, like, whatever.
We each have three girls. But we
a lot
met,
of girls.
A lot of girls.
So many girls.
We met in 2009. We were working on labor and delivery together at a busy teaching hospital in Boston. Em had already been there for like, I think only a few
not
months
too
before I
long
got there.
before you.
I
Yeah.
mean, the story of how I got hired is a funny one. If we have time, we can come back to that. And then I started working at that hospital, and we worked the night shift. Like, the night shift is where it's at. It's a fucking
so
blast.
fun.
What?
So our shift was
the night shift. Like, if
Why?
you were like night shift nurses
the night
are
shift.
a unique breed. We had I was the person who would skip off to work at night, and my husband was like,
is there something
"There's
wrong
something
with you?
wrong with you," and I
Wait,
was like, "There is not."
I have so many questions.
Our shift was 7:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. But like you need to get there around 7, and you never leave at 7:30. By the time you get out, it's 8. But
Did you have kids?
No,
We didn't have kids.
Okay.
Not yet.
No.
Just the dogs.
We didn't work the night shift. And we didn't work the night shift once we had kids.
When did you sleep?
During the day.
Someone just asked me this over the weekend at a holiday party. They were like, "But I don't understand when
No,
you
I
slept."
don't get
and
it.
I was thinking, I slept a lot.
Emily, you and I could
I could
go
lock
home.
in.
I would go home at 8 o'clock in the morning, eat a full dinner, like
That would
leftover
be so
Chinese.
confusing for
I
me.
didn't even eat. I
Okay.
just got in bed.
Full dinner, and then get in bed, and then sleep usually until you always got up later than me, but I would
6:15.
sleep minimum. Yeah, like literally.
Okay, so you're clocking 10 hours.
She is. I would sleep until between like 4 and 5 usually.
But
Earliest
when
I
would
was
you
ever
see
up at
other
3
people?
o'clock. You only get to work
That's
3
the
days a
greatest
week.
part of this.
Wait,
you
what?
don't see other people. And you only see your partner like a few times a week. So marriages thrive.
That's,
Wait,
I'm
so
sure true.
The longest my husband and I had ever spent together, like consecutive nights together, was on our honeymoon.
That's insane.
And like literally day 5,
You're like, get the fuck
we
out of here.
woke up and we were like sitting at
enough.
breakfast, like eating, and we were like, we have a good thing going on at home. Like, and we're like,
keep it that
yeah,
way.
yep, yeah,
This is working for us.
totally.
So Jamie used to pick me up though.
Yeah, so she lived
and
right down the street from the hospital.
So I
Okay.
could sleep later because I would just like roll out of bed and wait for her to pick me up. And I would know when she's coming because she would blast, what station would you play? Big
I
Booty
just-
Mixes.
no, that's new. I would have like 94.5.
Imagine like just really
Just blasting
aggressive, like
Yeah.
awesome
Yes.
hip hop blaring. And she would always bring me a coffee. I'd get in the
Wait.
car and off we
This
go.
is fascinating to me because I'm always like the night shift would, I think, murder my soul. How do you recover on the other days though?
So there are plenty of people, like, don't get me wrong. It's a very specific person who can work the night shift. It's no surprise that like the people who work the night shift are like have very similar personalities.
Okay.
So I totally understand why people can't
Yes.
do it, but like the people
Right.
who can,
You love it.
I would have never, if I had stayed in the hospital, I never would have switched to days.
Okay, so you
Never.
did 3 nights.
So you
a
did
week.
3 nights a week. It's only 3 12-hour shifts. That's a full-time job.
Like
Anything
we would
that
pick
you-
up a fourth sometimes.
anything
before
you
we had
pick up
kids.
extra
Really
for that
nice
is time and a
when
half.
You think about that.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have kids. We had so much money because we didn't have kids. We
didn't
were
have
like,
time to
And you
spend
didn't
the
have
money.
time to do
overtime.
anything because you're sleeping all day.
Totally.
So what are you spending money on?
So then, like, your recovery, you always had a weird, like, when you had, so you could work 3 days at the beginning of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then the following week, work Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And you could have a whole week off in the middle.
But
if you
then we would
wanted to.
hang out on our days off. So we would go like
my
get our
God.
nails done, go shopping because our husbands were at work. So
Yeah.
we would like one time we
Wow.
just slept at my house during the day, took naps and like watched TV.
Yeah.
Okay, it all comes back to naps. But wait, I do have one other
There you go.
question. about the night shift, was it also more fun in terms of who was coming in? Because like I feel like a lot of when you're in L&D, a lot of people are delivering in the middle of the night, and that I feel like more is chaotic almost. Like I was one of those people.
Yeah. So,
or no,
like. Yes and no. Like the short answer is like, yeah, if you had people naturally coming in labor most often happen on the night shift.
Yeah.
But again, we worked in like a busy teaching hospital. So there were also people like coming in the night before for an induction, right?
Right.
Where they
been
would
there all day.
Right. Or maybe they'd been there all
staying.
day and they were still being induced, or maybe they came in to start their induction at night and went home and came back.
I guess the overnight would be more exciting if you weren't in L&D. Because like I had these memories of my mom was obsessed with ER.
Yeah.
And so I have this famous story that, not famous, but like we tell it all the time. It's a famous story within my family.
Yeah.
My older sister was getting her appendix out. She had like an emergency appendectomy.
Yeah.
And I was so obsessed with ER from watching it with my mom that I thought hospitals were like where it was fucking at. I don't know who allowed this to happen, but I went to the hospital with my mom.
Okay.
I straight up spent the entire day there in the room. There is a photo of my sister in her gown with an IV bag and a stand, and I am wrapped in a towel with a robe around a towel around my head, like I was at a fucking spa. I showered there.
Oh, I bet you were like, there's a shower here.
I stayed there overnight on the cot. I don't know how I was even allowed to do it. I vividly remember getting like a cheesesteak from a vending machine because
you didn't order room service?
No.
Tater tots?
No, I just kept waiting for like ER things to happen. Yeah. And I remember being disappointed, but also so excited in the moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe overnight shift outside of L&D would bring like that kind of chaos.
Yeah. So yeah, like yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we thrive on a few things, and I think that's why we opened a company. We're like being independent, like having autonomy and decision making, like control over like what's going on, challenging how things are done, and the night shift afforded space to like critically think and make decisions a little bit more on your own because
there's no management.
The day-to-day is there. There's less students, less doctors around, and you really just like we would wake, and the doctors knew us well and trusted us.
100%.
So we handled stuff, and then we would wake the doctors up like when we needed them.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I think that we like thrive on
100%
that, right?
I mean, the element to that too is like,
but also drama.
I
like
loved. I mean, yes. I loved, being able to like connect with the doctors and be like, I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I'm good at my job. Like I will just, and there's, you know, they have to get to know you and all of that, but like there is an element of like pride and like knowing that you can take care of certain doctors, patients, they fully trust you and they know that you are going to call them when there's a problem or you need them to look at something or the patient's delivering, right? I mean, you have two kids. Like, your nurse is the one who's with you the entire time. No, the doctor just comes in and out. Right.
Well, I actually didn't meet my doctor until the baby was coming out of my hoo-ha.
Yeah.
Right.
I loved my nurses, but I did have one because you get so close with them. You're there for so long. I had one where, like, I was looking at her, like, name tag thing, and I think it said her college. And I was like, oh, you went there? She's like, yeah. We have so many connections. We're in the same sorority. I'm listing all these people.
Funny.
She's like, all right, I'm going to roll you over. She rolls me over to put the peanut ball in between my legs on the other side. I rip a fart
those legs
so fucking loud on her body. And I just looked at her and I was like, can you just forget that, like, we know people or that happened? One of those has to go because that will ruin my,
just like stuff like that doesn't rock an L&D nurse.
I know, but like
all.
I think about it all the time where I'm like, remember when I just let it rip on that girl's stomach?
You really were solidifying the reunion and the friendship.
Oh my gosh. So. Okay, so anyway.
Shit like that happens all the time.
I'm sure.
But you raise a good point in that we have to make trust and connection as nurses very quickly
with the patients
because it's so intimate.
That was the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
Is like you had to do it with the doctors, which like was its own thing where like I loved that, and then you had to do it with the patients too, and you had to do it with your patients really quick,
so fast,
and for some people faster than others, right? So if they're there for an induction and you're going to be with them all night long, like that's a slow play, right? Like I can like hang out with you for 20 or 30 minutes and like sit down and ask you a bunch of questions and explain what's going to happen. And right. But then you have the people who come in like one, you know, on one cheek, like baby's coming out. Right. And you will like have to get them to like actually breathe and trust that like you can help them. Right. And there is like a very animalistic experience that people have, right?
Right.
I feel like I'd actually love to be an L&D nurse. The more you're telling me about it.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
Like
it's
the people connecting, what you're seeing, what you're doing. Wait, okay, sorry, we've so sidebarred. But how did you? How did NAPS come to be?
We're bringing it full circle here, though, right? Because like actually, what started to happen is we would bring patients down. So labor and delivery and postpartum are separate worlds.
Yep.
In Boston at many of the hospitals. So you would like after delivery, an hour later, put the mom in a wheelchair, put the baby in a crib, and the nurse would push the mom and the partner would push the baby in the crib, and we would bring them down to their next room, and they would literally start to look at us like,
where are you going?
Where are you going? Are you leaving? Are you staying? Will I see you again? Yeah. They would ask for our number. Could you come over when we're home? And we were like,
did you ever do that? Could you?
Well,
so at the time we couldn't because we didn't have NAPS. So it was this moment. This was pre-kids, right?
Yeah.
Like we had just met, you know, now we're friends, but like we had just met, we became friends. Everybody was having this experience on labor and delivery. Yeah. Again, I'm sure you can appreciate the experience of like, I love you, please come home with me. Right. Yeah. And then we're like, what is going on? Like what services are available to people when they go home? Lo and behold, like not much.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were like, fuck it. Like, why don't we just start a company? We'll hire a bunch of nurses and we'll just send nurses to people's homes after they have a baby. And so that's what we did. Like literally, I think you were working the night shift and you like woke up to a text from me and I was like, I filed our LLC for Boston
while
NAPS.
I was sleeping.
Are you always sleeping?
Yes.
She still always sleeps.
If we talk about mental health in this episode, we'll bring it around again. But like, I need to lock in a serious amount of hours to function and feel good.
Not anxious.
I also do love sleeping.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I'm with you. Sleep. The lack of sleep is like the number one determined factor in a shitty mental health for me.
Sure.
Yes.
So,
for a lot of people.
But that was great. I'm like, great, awesome. Yeah. What should we do next?
So NAPS stands for Newborn and Parenting Support. But it originally started in 2011 as just daytime and overnight nursing care in Boston. So Emily and I worked some of the shifts, like for NAPS for clients.
We hired a bunch of nurses.
Most nurses who we worked with.
Right.
I mean, it's so smart. Like we've talked about night nurses on the show before because I didn't have one with my first. And I have mixed feelings about that. Part of me loved that it was just us. Part of me is like, maybe that's what led to so much of my postpartum anxiety, OCD, and depression. And then we had one a few nights a week for the first 6 weeks with my second. And I will never forget the first morning after having one. My husband and I looked at each other and we were like, all of our friends that acted like we went through the same experience were fucking lying to us because all of them had night nurses. And I'm like, they had a very different experience. And I love that for them. But like, wow, was that eye-opening of what a gift that can be. The sleep, the assistance, the knowledge, like the care.
I mean, I'll go on a slight tangent here. Like our goal with NAPS eventually would be that it's not a gift.
Why is it?
It shouldn't be a gift. Like we're not reinventing the fucking wheel
here. It's
here.
just really what you deserve and what you need, especially if we're going to talk about mental health. There's so much research that shows that fragmented sleep or lack of sleep just enhances all of the perinatal mood disorders like depression, anxiety, OCD, any mood disorder, right? And like consecutive sleep is actually what alleviates symptoms.
There was like this article that came out, like, I don't forget how many years ago now, 7 or 8 years ago, that was like, new study shows that postpartum moms who were experiencing mild to moderate symptoms of postpartum depression or anxiety were admitted to the hospital for 3 nights and their baby was taken care of just to sleep. And their symptoms were relieved. And I was like,
you
no
don't
fucking
say.
shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's actually very interesting. This is what we'll dive into once we finish this. But so much of what you're saying, welcome to the show. When you have an ADHD host, you are all over the fucking place. But I will say, I
love it.
Always land the plane. Okay, my brain somehow remembers the caveats. What fascinates me on this is the judgment that exists around having overnight help.
100%.
I had a TikTok go viral that was like, spend the night with me. I was doing a few videos of like spend the night with me with my toddler and my newborn. Yeah. And I did one where like we didn't have overnight help because we had her like half of the week almost. And then I did one where I was like spend the night with me, my toddler and my newborn with our postpartum doula. And the amount of people that were in my comments being like, if you can't take care of your baby overnight, why do you even have a child?
It's so bad.
Shut the fuck up. Also, like, this belief that women specifically have to suffer and that, like, you can't bring in members of a village to help you. It's like, it takes a village, but then when you actually use the village, it's like, you should be able to do this by yourself. Is so backwards and hurtful. And
it's damaging.
It's damaging,
it's very
but
damaging.
it also, like, feeds an internal voice. I don't know if you guys felt this way with your kids when it came to overnight help, because, like, even my husband had to, like, force me to agree to do it for a second. And the way that he did was he was like, your biggest fear is that you're not going to be able to spend as much time with our first, because you're not going to be able to show up for him in the way, but you're really not if you're not sleeping.
Right.
And that was what brought me on. And now I'm like, we need to save so that when we have a third every night. But I already have a little bit of that guilt where it's like, am I not supposed to be doing, like, I don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah. So Emily Nagowski, I hope I'm not butchering her last name, but she's like a world-renowned sex therapist, maybe. She came up with this concept called human giver syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of this.
I haven't, but tell me.
Okay. I hope that I do Emily justice and don't butcher this, but basically it's this made up, I just want to emphasize, made up cultural belief that a woman's worth is dependent upon what they give to others. It's time, sadly so true. Body, energy, resources, right?
Soul.
Literally, right? And like, what experience
entire selves
highlights that more than motherhood? Where like you're literally giving your time, energy, body, love, like literally all of it to another human being, and that is how our worth is measured, right? So culturally, this is what we believe. And so the judgment, the judgment from others and the guilt that we then feel within ourselves is based on this made up belief that our worth is based on what we give to others. So when we don't do something for someone else, right, then we're not worthy, we're selfish, right? And it's actually just made up. It's just made up. Like, it's not even, this isn't like a based on research. Like, this is just how our like society has evolved.
Right. But then add in like gatekeeping too, maternal gatekeeping.
Totally.
Where you're just like, you've probably done it. We've all done it. I do it to my husband, where people offer to help you, and it's like you actually just find yourself saying no for no good reason at all, because you're gatekeeping them. Like, you're shutting the door to be like, no, I can just do it all. Like, for example,
or I'll do it better than you.
Yes,
it's a lot of that
for sure. Yep. But like, I'm up breastfeeding, so I'll just let my husband sleep because he has to work in the morning, and I'm already up anyway, so I'll just do the diaper, and I'll swaddle, and I'll run downstairs and throw the bottle in the dishwasher, and I'm already doing it, or I'll do it better than you. Like, you know, I with my third, I even did it to my husband. He was like putting a diaper on her, and I was like, that's not tight enough. Like, or the way he was bottle feeding her, like, it's not parallel. Like, you need to, and he was just like, get up off my dick. Like, please.
No, literally.
But like, so but if you layer all these things together, it's like a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
And I do think like it comes back, like just bringing it back to the nighttime help, right? Like, all of a sudden you can, if you're feeling guilty or selfish or whatever, right? And, or, you know, experiencing, I mean, some of this, there's levels of anxiety to it, right? But whatever you're experiencing, all of a sudden you compound that with not getting enough sleep.
It's a
those feelings, even
disaster.
Those feelings are worse. The feelings of guilt and unworthiness and am I doing the right thing? Am I fucking up my kid for life? Like, even those feelings and thoughts get worse.
Yeah, I just did a video on that because, like I said, like, we just had a minor sleep regression, and I was like, you know, in the beginning, you're used to not sleep and you almost like expect it. But then once you're used to sleep, to go back for a bit, it's like, what is happening in this time warp? And I was having these moments where I felt like such an irritable bitch and so anxious. And then I spiral shamed on top of it because I'm like, why am I like this? Why can't I just enjoy this day? Why is everything this kid is doing triggering me? And I'm like, oh, I'm sleep deprived. Like, so all of those emotions are then even magnified and worsened. Yes. But I do think that so much of the judgment comes from, yes, what we've created, unfortunately, as a society, that like the motherhood is martyrdom and you have to suffer to be a good mom.
100%.
But I think also a lot of it is projection.
100%.
Jealousy because, again, this is a gift, even though it shouldn't be. This should be a standard. This should be covered by insurance. This should be something that we offer parents. Yep. But the reality is that it's not.
Well, that's why we call it a gift, I think, too, is because it's like this financial piece.
It's a financial piece. You can't deny it.
And then it becomes like, oh, aren't you so privileged to have paid for that?
100%.
And then
so
there's like, anger around that.
Is it privilege or is it prioritizing? Because like think about with my third for Eloise, right? Yes, I was very fortunate to have night help. I saved, though, my entire pregnancy to do it. I just feel like after Jamie had her third, for sure. Yeah. After Jamie had her third, though, she was like lining up food delivery and I don't know, other things, right?
Food delivery, night help, and help with my older kids.
Yeah.
They're my 3 big
And
things.
I was like trying to map out my postpartum recovery to do all the things she did. And Jamie was like,
why the fuck are you getting food delivery? You don't give a shit. Like, you don't cook.
You don't even need food. You just need to sleep. We all know that you need to sleep. Right. But again, like, yes, there's this privilege piece where I could save my money and I chose to use it on that. Mm-hmm. But then I think about the piece where the impact it had on my mental health. Like I didn't need people folding my laundry. I didn't need people visiting me during the day and like holding the baby. I didn't need meals delivered. I just needed to sleep through the night to be a normal functioning person. Like when you say irritability or feeling like triggered by everything, like to not have those feelings. Yeah. So I can not only enjoy and take care of the baby, but we had 2 other kids that had to like get up and get dressed for school and get out the door.
That's the other thing. When it's not your first, like there are other children that need to be cared 100%. For.
Right.
I also think that like we've now seen and learned that like a happy mom leads to a healthy child. Mm-hmm. And I just wish that was more, I mean, obviously there's so many things I wish our society focused more on, but yeah.
I mean, going back to the piece of like the piece of privilege, there's absolutely privilege to it. Yeah. Like no doubt about that. Yeah. Not denying that. This is the piece where it's like, it's, you know, in some states, insurance covering like doula services is becoming a thing, like,
which is amazing.
Right. So there are things that I think we're working towards very, very, very slowly in our healthcare system to try and like, you know, bring this into people's homes. And like one of the things that I wish that everybody had access to was also just like education of how you can make these things work even without the financial aspect of it, right?
Okay,
so for example, right, overnights. One of the things that we now again, this is assuming that you're in a home with a partner. So like there's other ways that we can talk about this too. But if you're having a baby and you live with your partner, one of the things that we talk about like in our prenatal classes is like how you and your partner can split up the night so that you're both getting a chunk of sleep.
That's what we did.
Or or switching off every other night and what that could look like, right? And talking about how you do that even if you're breastfeeding. Yeah. Right? And then again, like we posted about this too, about how like what the night can look like if you're splitting it up. And then all the breastfeeding people come out of nowhere and are like, you're going to totally fuck up your supply. And it's like, actually, chill out. Like,
everyone take a breath.
Right. Actually, probably not. But even if somebody does, maybe they're choosing to do that in order to get sleep because that actually makes them feel better.
Yes.
And that's their choice.
That's their
and
choice.
That's okay.
But it's like sleep,
that was
right?
also one option of many options of how to
like if you're in the home with anybody, it doesn't necessarily have to be your partner. If you're living with, a parent, a sibling, whatever, right? If there's somebody, like my sisters came and helped me with my first and would stay overnight with me. If there's somebody willing and able to help and they are willing and able to maybe like, stay at your house later into the night so that you can get a 4 or 5 hour stretch of sleep postpartum feels like you had like, like you got injected with like
you could
a
run
ephedrine.
a marathon.
Right. So that's a way that like if you have people in your community, in your home that are willing and able to help, that's one way to do it. Right. Same thing with like meals, right? Sure. You can hire a private chef to make you meals. You can hire a meal delivery service. Or you can take people up on the offer of like, how can I help you?
That's what we did for a second.
Right. And it's like, actually, we have a meal train. Or I actually just don't have any groceries. I need somebody to just go grocery shopping and put the groceries away. Right.
That was my big sister. Right. But like, I feel like we are so often receiving and giving. I did this until I became a mom. Like a onesie, a baby blanket, a lovey, a rattle. Like that gifting can be so much better used to better support the mom. Yeah. Because the reality is, like, most of the baby typically will have like the things they need in the sense of diapers, wipes, a safe place for them to sleep, and pajamas.
Right. You're not going to find anybody who's pissed about buying a baby item.
You need education. You need education and support too.
Right. Okay, so NAPS was originally, and here we go landing this plane. NAPS was originally overnight care.
Daytime and overnight care.
Yep. And now it has transitioned into
big snowball.
Yeah, big snowball. I mean, basically, truly what happened was, once we started working with clients, we very quickly realized prenatal education was a huge piece of this. Feeding support was a huge piece of this. So those were the next two services to come. Yep. That's when Emily and I got certified as lactation consultants, and hired other lactation consultants on our team. Then that snowballed into then we started having our own
after
kids.
My first child tortured me for a year. Totally. I was like, we need to know more about sleep.
Right. Yeah. So then that as we had our own kids, and it's not like I want to be clear, right? Like, we were providing really good care even before we had our own kids, right? But having your own kids,
know until you know.
So then we experience it, and we're like, oh, okay. Like, actually, what's helpful is, having this. Really, where we landed was I want to be able to provide. I want to be the provider. We want our company to be the provider of care for women and families from when they're pregnant through their kid being potty trained and going to preschool. Okay. And there is no reason why it actually can't be the same provider, right? Like, we're nurses, nurse practitioners. You can see a nurse practitioner as your pediatric care provider, right? Until they're 18 or plus, right? So there's no reason from an educational standpoint, medical background standpoint, it can't be the same person doing this. So I think there's value in it being the same person. If, we were teaching your prenatal classes, and the person who taught your prenatal class was the person who came over and did your feeding consult postpartum, and then taught your CPR class, and then you checked in weekly with in your support group, and then taught you how to sleep train your baby, and then talked you through starting solids and 1-year-old transitions and sleep regressions and picky eating, and how fucking awesome would that be?
No,
where it's I know everything about you. I know your style.
So many people involved, and you're researching so many, and then you're it's so nice to have it in one spot.
Right. Yeah. I think having our own kids, though, too, because Jamie has 3 girls and I have 3 girls, we, again, provided really great care before we had kids. Right. But in seeing how different our kids were, absolutely, it helped us also realize, okay, we want care to come from high quality medical professionals. Yeah. But also, I do think there was an element, especially when I worked as an NP in the office or in the hospital system, where we just kind of got immune to this is what we recommend, this is what we do. And what highlighted how we talk to clients was our own kids, of what actually works for one kid isn't going to work to another. Absolutely. And so in addition to getting okay, you're going to show up and have this nurse who stays with you for your whole journey, who knows you so well, we're not going to tell you what to do unless you twist my arm and are Emily, just tell me what to do. Then I'll be okay, this is what I would do. But usually we're asking all of these questions. Right. You even talked about sleep before we got here. Somebody might be oh, well, you better get back on sleep training this week now that you're home from your vacation. I would say to you well, where were you? And how long were you there? And what's going on during the day? And how's diet? And how's whatever, a million questions to figure out for you, where you're at. And then there's so many options of how you could do something too. So then I'd be okay, you could do it this way, this way, or this way. What feels good for you? Yes. So,
and I think with the multiple kids, I say this all the time, having my second was the most necessary, humbling experience. Because my first was
same for you, for sure.
angel child who did, he was just, and still is, so easy. And I'm sleep, oh, that's hard for you, just follow a schedule. And I really thought that it was that easy. Yeah. And then I did everything the same with my second and got wildly different results. And I was oh, so it's not me necessarily.
Not my parenting.
Yeah. Interesting. But it's been so necessary for me as a public creator because it's made me realize that 100%. Not everything's going to work for every kid. You have to figure out what works best for you and your family at that time, and it's going to be different. One of those things being breastfeeding and formula feeding.
Your preferences for feeding will change with each kid as well.
Absolutely change, because with my first, I breastfed for, I think it was like 5 months exclusively. And with my second, that just wasn't in the cards for us. Like, I know it can be for many other people, but it wasn't for us, or the way that I wanted to spend my time. But like we said about the judgment, like, and the guilt we were talking about before we started recording, like, I felt guilty of giving my second a different experience than my first. And we stopped at 8 weeks, I think it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And even though I have been so loudly feed your baby however the fuck you want, I was still like, should I keep pushing, even though it was awful for everyone involved with my second? So like, why do we do that?
I mean, I think like the judgment piece, right? Like, when I'm thinking about like the judgment and the guilt, two things that we just talked about, I feel like play into this, right? One of them is oftentimes, and I'm not taking a shot at healthcare providers, because there are some really great healthcare providers that Emily and I have worked with, but like oftentimes when you see a healthcare provider, like they are giving you like general advice or making like blanket statements around like what's to come or how you should handle a situation, right? And then you compound that with maybe just your first experience with your first kid. Or maybe you had 2 kids and they were similar, and like that one thing, the one way that you did it worked for you, right? And so you have like this healthcare provider that's tends to make like blanket statements and recommendations, right? Then you have like family and friends and social media, right? All these outside influences that are telling you how to do it also, but they're telling you how to do it based on usually their one lived experience, right? But they're stating it as if it's fact, and that's how you should do it. And if you don't, you're wrong, right? So the people who judge you for not breastfeeding or for hiring a night nurse, right? Maybe it's a little bit of jealousy, right? And resentment, like, oh, that must be nice. I wish I could have that, right? But oftentimes I think it's like that person's lived experience was like, maybe they didn't have a choice but to take care of their own kid. And to your point, like that projection is like, then everybody else should too.
Yes.
Right. So the perspective of having 2 kids who are so wildly different, my first 2, I had the exact same experience. Like, we call that the trick baby, the first baby that's like an angel. And you're like, you could trick me into having a million babies.
Yeah. Wait, selfishly, what's your third like?
She is either going to be a sociopath or president or both, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. It's unclear. She's 5, almost 6. Like, she's a mix of both.
They kind of all trend like, though, our oldest are kind and rule followers, and
I mean, my oldest now is.
The middles are kind of eccentric and wild and big personalities, and the youngest, Camilla and Eloise, like, they can fend for themselves.
For the record, like, have another kid. I mean, you already mentioned
we'll get you on board by the end.
But I mean, I can convince anybody to have another one or not, for the record. But like, I would have had a 4th.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
At the expense of my marriage, which is why we didn't. But I definitely would have had a 4th.
Vasectomy is happening the second that third pops up.
I would have had a 4th, but it would have been at the expense of my friendship and business partnership.
100%.
So
yeah, I think it just like I think it comes down to like a lot of the advice that you get from people is either a textbook answer, right? Like from the medical world, maybe, or a answer based on one person's experience with that thing.
Right.
And so like, this is where like what Emily was just talking about, like actually what I want to, like what we do through NAPS and how we talk to people is like, I actually want to combine those 2 worlds and then add in this other layer. Like there could be a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
And like in the middle is like medical world, real life parenting, personal preferences. And in the middle is NAPS, and that's where all these things intersect.
Okay.
Right? Where it's like, yes, I want to pull from research that we have. Like, bad news is we don't have a whole lot of fucking research.
No one cares because it's women's health.
Exactly.
It's quite outdated as well.
And I want to pull from like real life, not my personal experience, just like real life like real life experiences in general, right? Because there are some things that get recommended to you and you're like, yeah, that's not how you're going to do in real life, right?
Yeah.
And then like, tell me about your life, right? Like, what's your situation at home? do you have a partner? What are they like? Like, what's their schedule like?
Yeah.
Do you have other kids? Like, what are your biggest fears right now?
And
like,
what is your gut telling you?
Yes.
Which is huge.
If we can like get you to like shut out
quiet the noise,
everything else, earmuffs, like focus in. I feel like we both always end with that. Like, what is your gut telling you?
And I feel so strongly about that. I lead with my gut in all aspects of parenting, and people are always like, what books do you read? I've not read one I never did. I didn't feel pulled to it. But it's been very interesting. We've mentioned sleep training, for instance. Yeah. I think a lot of people feel judged for sleep training. And I actually have a different experience where I felt judged for not sleep training.
No, you can easily get judged for both.
I can like, see you getting judged on either side.
Yeah. And I would say that, we were struggling with our sleep, my second, and everyone is in my DMs. Why aren't you sleep training? Why aren't you sleep training? I think you should sleep train, whatever. And like, even friends being like, why aren't you sleep training? I'm like, I just can't explain it. Do I think it would have worked with my first? We didn't have to ever. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
My second, I know him. It did not feel right for us, and we chose not to. Right. And I've been texting with my girlfriend who's going through something similar, and she's like, it's been wild to me, the opinions that people are throwing on me to sleep train my child. And what I always say is, like, you have to do what works best for your family. And
we're not there at 1 a.m. either, making sure you're
answer.
sticking to the plan that we gave you that you didn't want to do in the first place. Exactly. I do a lot of calls with people who have older kids and toddlers, and sometimes they'll tell me, like, they're in my bed right now, and that's what's working. And I'm like, okay,
great,
sure. That's not what they say though, right? They booked the call.
I have to get it out of them. Sorry, they're not honest about it. I have to let them know that I'm not going to judge them. Right. Like, I have to get it out of them. Though. You're right.
Yeah, that's
right.
my point though, right? Yeah. They come to the call saying like, my kids, I need to get my kid out of my bed, right? We ask all these questions like, okay, like, what's going on with your day? How did you get here? What's going on with your days? What's going on with your overnights? And then like, you do this too. I would say like, do you actually want your kid out of your bed, or do you feel like your kid should be out of your bed?
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is actually working for you and you don't care to change it. And as soon as you give somebody permission to say, it actually isn't bothering me, I'm like, great.
Who cares?
Your kid won't be in your bed until they go to college.
Like,
so if this is working for you right now,
everything is temporary.
Then leave it the fuck alone.
Yeah,
but totally.
On this note, you talked about medical advice and specifically around the feeding aspect of things. I think so much of the judgment, yes, is societal, but it also stems from I'm not saying healthcare system.
Yes, it does.
But okay, thanks. But what about these like baby-friendly hospitals? Can you explain them to people who have never heard that term?
Yeah. So there's two things that I would say. One is baby-friendly hospitals. So baby-friendly hospitals is essentially hospital designation. I should look up exactly what it says on the internet, but it's a hospital designation, right? So it's like a designation that hospitals can get
by meeting criteria,
by meeting certain criteria, right? Of that criteria involves things like not having a nursery, which technically they always have a nursery because there's if you're doing any sort of procedure on a baby or something, you have to have a place to bring them to.
Why would that be baby friendly to not have a nursery? So that you have to stay with the mom?
They have to stay in the room with the mom.
Okay. It's very correlated to promoting breastfeeding, which I'm sure you're going to go into as well.
Okay.
So.
Not offering pacifiers. Okay. Not offering pacifiers, not offering formula unless medically necessary.
Mm-hmm. Which who deems it medically necessary? Because I can use my sister as the example, not producing, not latching. Mm-hmm. Kid had jaundice, begging for formula because the kid needs to be fed to help the jaundice.
High bilirubin levels is medical necessity.
Right.
So that sounds like it got a little dicey.
No,
but
it got dicey.
Very dicey.
And then being like, and she's like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
So one, and I'm thinking about how I'm speaking, not because I'm worried about being politically correct here, more so I don't, what I'm saying is how I understand it. I would have to look up what's actually factually accurate, right? But I've worked in baby friendly hospitals before. Mm-hmm. My understanding has always been that if a patient comes into the hospital and on your intake form, you ask how somebody is feeding. How you plan to feed your baby. First time expecting parent. How do you plan to feed your baby? 98% of the people are going to tell you that they plan to breastfeed, right? So your options are breastfeed, formula feed, or both,
It's 3 boxes. Check,
3 boxes.
Check.
You check one of the boxes, right?
Yeah.
If the patient comes into the hospital on admission and says that they plan on breastfeeding, and at any point during their hospital stay, their baby is given formula, and there may be medical necessity exceptions to this.
Okay.
But there is something related to how the hospital gets reimbursed, or they're flagged or dinged for something, or like
funding.
There's definitely something there related to that. So that's a piece of it, and that's why I think
on the way out they ask you, were you given formula? Like, did you use formula? Right. It's all charted, so they audit that later and look back.
That's psychotic,
right?
And not talked about enough.
No. And I think it's like, I think it's all like marketing bullshit, right? Like, who's in charge of the baby-friendly designation? How much are hospitals paying to get it? So that so that this word baby friendly is thrown out, and you're like, oh, why wouldn't I deliver at a baby friendly hospital? You know where I want to deliver? A mom friendly hospital.
Same.
A mom friendly.
I bet they have much better food and comfier fucking hospital beds
and a nursery.
Yeah. Well, no, it brings up a point. I'm actually now reflecting back on this. It was at the same hospital that my sister delivered at. We had to do an overnight stay when my second was 2 weeks old, and I remember there was only one of us that was allowed to stay overnight, which had to be the case anyway because we had a toddler. So I was staying overnight with him, and they came in at like 4 a.m. or something, and they were like, okay, just so you know, like breakfast starts at this time. Are you breastfeeding? And I was like, why are you even asking me if I'm breastfeeding? I was like, yeah. And they were like, okay, you're qualified for a free meal.
Oh, yes.
And like, part of me understands it because of the nutrient. The other part's like, just give me a fucking free meal. I have to be breastfeeding.
I had never heard of this, and my cousin is a single mom by choice. She delivered my niece Greta down in Pennsylvania, and she had to go. Was she on cooling? No, I can't remember. She was in that. She was in the ICU, and they came around and asked my cousin if she was breastfeeding, and she was pumping, but she was like, "Why?" And they were like, "Because you can have while you're here, while your daughter is admitted, because my cousin was discharged from the hospital. While you're admitted here, you can have free meals." And my cousin looked at me as a single mom by choice and was like, so if I wasn't pumping and if I wasn't breastfeeding and I'm a single mom here in the ICU by myself, you wouldn't give me free food? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was crazy. Like, wild.
And I remember calling to place my order and being like, hi, I'm calling to place a breakfast order. And they were like, what room number? And I gave them my son's room number. And they were like, oh, you're actually not checked off as a breastfeeding mother. And I was like, do you want to come look at my nipples? Like, come up to my room. I'm breastfeeding right now. I just need food. I'm alone in the hospital with my baby. The last thing I want to worry, like, are you fucking kidding? This
mom
kid is 2
friendly
weeks
though
old.
Is like, you just grew a baby. You
By
went
the way,
through,
this is made up. There are mom-friendly hospitals.
Like, but we're gonna start mom-friendly hospitals. Jamie and I are, because like that would be like, it doesn't fucking matter how you're feeding your baby. You literally just grew a human. We're in labor for arguably hours to days. Could have even had a traumatic delivery, like vacuum, episiotomy, C-section, lost some blood. You're exhausted. All moms deserve to be nourished.
No, it was insane.
What?
I had to call the nurse in and be like, you need to go tell the front desk to check me off so that I can order food. I'm ravenous right now. Like, the whole thing is fucking crazy.
The other piece of this too, though, that I was going to say is, even if you look at like the AAP guidelines for things, right?
Yeah,
like,
let's talk about that and some of the research
American
really
Academy
quick.
of Pediatrics, right? Granted, they're in the American Academy of Pediatrics. Fine. I get it. They're going to focus on the kid. But like, how do you focus on a child without also considering a parent, right? So there's all these recommendations. For example, right, when they came out with the new sleep recommendations, what was that, like 8 years ago now? Where your kid should sleep in the same room as you for the first year.
No,
it's
that's insane.
There's quite literally
based
no research to support that.
Yeah.
And with this recommendation, you are literally not considering the impact on the parent's sleep and subsequent mental health by making that recommation.
Yeah.
Right.
That's insane.
The fuck?
Well, but think back to pacifiers in baby-friendly hospitals. The research shows that it will not impact your breastfeeding experience to use a pacifier.
Is that why people don't use pacifiers?
What'd you say?
I gave my kids pacifiers day one. Is that why? Because they think it'll impact breastfeeding negatively?
The myth around pacifier use is that it will cause nipple confusion. I have never met a baby that was confused between a pacifier that gives them no fucking food and a boob.
Right.
But
they're locked. They're locked at the hospital.
They also don't want pacifiers to like replace feedings or delay feedings. Like there's
fair.
But there's just education that needs to be done around
But that goes back to the baby friendly, right? Sorry. So like posters are on the walls. They came around when we worked at the hospital and they frosted the glass to the nurseries so you couldn't see in.
Yeah, that was,
and they put posters up everywhere.
That was all fake.
Where are all the babies with their mothers?
What?
Like, oh yeah. And
it's
so
like it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your child is?
Do you know where they are? I get it as a lactation consultant that like if your baby's with you, you're more likely to like recognize that they're hungry, pick them up and learn to feed them, and like put them on the boob or give them a bottle instead of a pacifier when they're hungry. Like I get all of that, but also it doesn't take into consideration again the mom who is sitting there at 2 a.m. who is in labor for days. Like think about an induction and they can't keep their eyes open and they're gonna like literally drop their baby, or you're going home after 2 nights, right?
Or
and like,
if you're going to push it that much because of breastfeeding, then have a fucking lactation consultant on staff 24 hours who can come to your room at 2 a.m. and help latch your baby onto your cracked bleeding nipple.
I mean, totally. That, right there, that.
Yeah.
Because another thing, not to keep bringing up my sister, but like she asked for her lactation consultant for like, I think it was 24 hours until she saw one.
Oh, for sure.
Like, luckily my doula, which like, this is why I'm so pro doula. Yeah. My doula was also a lactation consultant. So like right when our baby came out, both times we had Ebony, the same one, she was helping me like right away. Right. And that was the only reason I breastfed, honestly, because I had inverted nipples, and it would have never fucking happened without her. Without support. My Lord, it was a journey to get there. But one other thing about the like recommendations, doesn't the World Health Organization recommend that we breastfeed until 2 years old?
Yeah, the World Health,
that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, but this goes back to like you're damned if you sleep train your baby, you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you breastfeed your baby, you're damned if you don't. You're damned if you breastfeed your baby longer than a year. You're damned if you don't. Like literally,
no,
like, there is polarity to everything fucking decision that you make as a parent. It is absurd.
And you know what? It never happens. The dad gets judged.
Totally.
No, it's literally wild.
It's insane.
So I do just, I mean, I think it's mind blowing, the judgment and the polarity, again, of how it feels as if you cannot win, which is why landing that plane, leaning into doing whatever works for you.
Right.
And releasing the judgment.
And finding people who actually support you and the decisions that you're making and aren't pushing their own agenda.
Let's talk about this.
I was just going to say, do you want to share what we teach in boot camp about people? It's very basic, but I feel like it's super helpful.
Yeah. But one of the things that we teach in our prenatal classes is identifying who your people are.
Okay.
And so we say, like, identify who your people are that you turn to for sound parenting advice. This will actually be a fun exercise for you.
Oh, yeah. Let's have Cam make her list.
So this is like, think about everybody in your life.
Yeah.
And this may have changed for maybe you were like, we're talking about this usually with like first time expecting parents, right? Mm-hmm. But think about all the people in your life and who you actually like value their opinion, value their insight. And if you had a question or something going on, you would ask them about it. Or maybe you would be able to talk to them about something that's like really challenging and they would like validate you and be empathetic towards it. So thinking about those people who you would like turn to for sound parenting advice. So this is usually an exercise that we have like couples do together. Who would be on your list?
Number 1 is my husband.
Okay. Love
Absolutely.
It.
Like
we're usually having couples do it together. No, it's fine. But that is, I'm so happy that you said that because if you are doing this independently, like, yes, you're
without fail. He's my sounding board for everything in my life, but especially with parenting. Like he's my level-headed rock. I think it depends on what specifically I'm looking for in advice. Like my best friend Jess is like I can say anything as ugly as it is, and I know there's no judgment and there's only validation.
Love it.
This morning I texted her because we are in a very deep attached whining phase of our baby. And I said, I'm having such ugly emotions that I'm embarrassed by of how angry it makes me to have him crawl around the house chasing me, whining and crying when I know nothing's wrong. And she goes, because it's fucking annoying. That's why. And like, that's all I needed. I was like, you're right. It is just annoying. So her, my older sister, when it comes to like more like emotional navigating around almost like parenting our inner child because we were raised in the same house, if that makes sense.
100%.
Like, oh, have you noticed that I do this the same way or you do or we do this differently than how we did when we were little? Why do you think that is? I have a mom group of 3 women in my town who gave birth like around the same time of me for both of ours. And that's just like this is really fucking hard, or like, what is this happening in your house? I'm struggling with this, validation and advice. And then some 2 high school friends I have that are my people.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions for you. Yeah. And this is what I want to get at. 1, no judgment, asking questions.
Yeah, I don't care.
I noticed, because this is the same for my list, your parents aren't on your list.
Yeah, because, well, my dad just feels so removed from the age of where my kids are now. I would turn to him when they're older, when I have more like life parenting advice. But like, to be, he doesn't remember. And also he was not involved. Right. Of doing the diapers, the feeds, that kind of stuff.
So my list is the same, and I want to validate for people, like, it's actually okay if the people who raised you, even if you feel like they did a really good job raising you, right? It's actually okay if the people who raised you aren't on your list.
Yes, and
even if they're helpers too, like they might be watching your kids and bringing you food and helping you, but they're not on your list.
I will say my mom is absolutely helping. I mean, both my parents are, but like helping me, there for me, but less so someone I'm reaching out to right now, because again, I think like at the age that my kids are, it's so far removed from where she is in life and what she remembers and what has happened over the years. Like we were like, sleep on your stomach, back is unsafe. You know, like
we were even in car seats.
No, like it's insane.
We were in the front seat in a car seat,
or
perhaps.
in the back of the wagon, facing the cars at the glass.
My mom told me over Thanksgiving to take Eloise out of her crib, and I was like, "This is a reminder why you're not on my list."
Totally.
Yeah. So like I think that it's just far removed. As they get older and like are teenagers, maybe like I think. Yeah. And there's so many incredible ways that I was raised that I include, and then there are ways that I was raised that I don't want to include.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I noticed is there isn't a healthcare provider on your list.
I don't love my healthcare providers.
So
that's
like,
something I'm working on.
Yeah. So like this, like that's the gap that I want to bridge for people, because most people, I would guess, right, that most people don't have their healthcare provider on their list.
Yeah.
Especially for their kids, right? But who is the healthcare provider that you see the most, especially in the first year of your kid's life?
My kids.
Is your pediatrician, right? Your kid's pediatric care provider. And like, if I have had people like argue the counter side to this of like, do you really have to love your pediatrician? And I'm like, yeah, kind of.
It's not that I don't
or you
love
have
them.
to have somebody, or you have to have somebody in your corner who at least knows what the fuck they're talking about.
And then you can ask questions anytime without feeling judged. Like, is it okay if I call them? Like, already.
Well, that's what it is.
You know,
I hate calling, and then I have to wait and
think of this call and this and that.
If it's like a medical thing, of course.
No, I know.
No, but like I think I'm thinking more of like day to day.
No, I know.
Like the other day, we had my baby was on antibiotics because he has strep, but he had strep like 2 months prior. So we were like, let's do a different antibiotic, whatever. He's broken out in a rash the next day, and I start panicking. So that is obviously when I'm calling the emergency line of my pediatrician.
Totally.
And I'm texting my girlfriends being like, guys, has anyone had this type of rash?
Oh my God, we need to give Kim an annual membership.
No, I know.
Okay, this is crazy. You can use the board.
It was roseola, which like, who the hell even is that?
Yep.
So we had all 4 molars breaking through strep and roseola in the same weekend of my poor child. But I think that my own journey with medical professionals has been difficult. Like I talk about this a lot with my pregnancy. I was in prodromal labor for 3.5 weeks, and I was just denied delivery 3 times. Like went to the hospital, thought it was happening. So that's where I kind of lost my I don't feel like I have a doctor in my corner.
There needs
many
to be more
people
care and
do,
empathy.
right?
Yeah.
So like, first, coming back to the list, that list, when you make that list, right? And we have people, again, do this like with their partner in a prenatal class. And it's like, I actually want you to like write this down.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, wait, this is a prenatal class, right? They're having me do something so different.
Yeah, I'm not going to show you a fucking video of a baby coming out of somebody else's vagina. But then it's like, when you get advice from somebody, usually unsolicited, that's not on your list. I am giving you permission to say like, thanks, but no thanks. Like in one ear, out the other, right? So whether that's your mom, right? Because your mom, like saying you really need to take Eloise out of the crib, it's like, sorry, you're like.
See, I feel very confident doing that.
Totally,
being like, no thanks.
But it's such a basic exercise. But we've talked about like shame and judgment the whole episode of so many different topics. Yes. And it's easier said than done to be like, well, I'll just shut out the outside noise, or I won't let it get to me. It does get to you. So we're not going to stop that. Yes. Right?
You've also done a lot of work to be intentional.
Wait,
around
as I
how
just
you
said
think
that,
of
though,
things,
yeah. Yes, absolutely. As I just said that, what's fascinating to me, and this is something I'll bring to my therapist tomorrow, is that my mom can say something to me, or like, I mean, my mother-in-law doesn't give me unsolicited advice. She's an angel, as is my mom, but she just feels more comfortable with me, I think, to give that. It's a difference of an in-law and a parent. Totally. I'm just like, no, that's okay, whatever. And she doesn't even give much. But something about people on the internet that I don't know.
100%.
That I don't know why that's different. Again, what I'll talk to my therapist about, where like, and this is something I think about in other avenues of my life, where it almost creates a voice of like, are they right? A version of self-doubt and a version of then feeling like I have to prove something even though what they're saying isn't true, if that makes sense.
They don't even know me. Like, why are they saying that?
Yeah,
right?
like, you don't know me.
I know.
Right. I'm like, if you know me and you don't like me, I'm fine with that. But you don't know me.
Right.
Or you don't know all of the things that we already unpacked and explored in terms of like yourself and your family and your options.
Right.
How you put a lot of decision making and thought into these moments or whatever, like feeding, right? And so then you're like, how could you make this one comment a snap judgment? You have no idea all of the back effort and time that went into the decision that I made that was actually just best for me.
I do like to put through a filter, because we get backlash on social media too.
Yeah.
Like through the filter of like, is this somebody, and you can do this in everyday life too, like, is this somebody who I'm even going to remember or think about, or I care about them or they care about me in 5 years? Yeah. If the answer is no, then it's like, they're not worth.
I also think about, is this someone that I want to be like?
Totally.
And if it's not, why take advice from someone that you don't want to emulate?
Right.
But I feel like
it does come up. So like having the point is, right, like having this list isn't going to fix like how you feel about all unsolicited advice.
And
like,
we're not going to stop it. It's going to keep coming.
Right.
It's not our job to be like, don't let it come in. Like, it's going to seep in.
Right. But the idea is that like you are actually thinking about and being intentional with how you are seeking out or receiving advice. Because there are plenty of parents, right, who the way that they seek out advice is to like crowdsource. Yeah. And sometimes that's actually just not really helpful, because if you ask 8 different people, you're probably going to get 8 different answers.
I also think finding, when you asked about medical professionals, like I think finding creators who you trust,
I completely
and
agree.
Quieting
you need to
others.
quiet the others,
and not even trust, but maybe like resonate with. Like Dr. Elisa Pressman is like a person who I love. I very much align with her parenting methods. She's like a mentor of mine who like I know I could call or text if I had an issue, but like her style of teaching and parenting resonates with me, and so she's someone I go to. I know people feel that way about a Dr. Becky, or like finding someone in this space where it's like that makes sense and I trust their opinion, and like maybe that random person I saw on TikTok isn't the person that resonates with me.
I can agree with you,
because even me, I'm like, I'm not going to resonate with everyone. Not everyone's going to want to parent the way I do, and that's totally fine. But like, then don't take my advice or what you see as like the end all be all. Totally. A, it's not. Right. But B, it just may not be what's best for you.
Right.
Yeah. We have to be though about what we're consuming.
Yeah. I do also think that like going back to the healthcare provider piece, like why isn't your healthcare provider like more accessible, or somebody like that who can help you more accessible? Like, why can't that be somebody who's on your list?
I feel like
who you turn to for sound parenting advice.
We don't have enough medical professionals, and I could be totally wrong.
No, especially in
now.
Like OBGYNs, like general pediatrics, women's health. It's not even like nobody's like when nobody goes into those fields. Yeah, because they don't make any money.
It's why I couldn't deliver. There wasn't a freaking bed. Like, there was too much demand.
But the support and the professionals that you deserve to have postpartum are like your OB or your midwife or a nurse practitioner, your pediatrician, a doctor of pelvic floor PT, a mental health counselor, occupational therapy.
Should have been on my list.
That's fair.
There you go. But like, these are things, if you look at other countries, these things
provided.
they're provided. It's like it's a part of your care. And
you
so
have a midwife come and check on you.
I know,
for
right?
Days after
we're not like
deliver.
reinventing the wheel here,
Right.
but those types of providers are the ones that we've stacked into nurture to be like, at least you can find them here because it's really hard.
Well, and also the accessibility, right?
Yeah,
Like this is
the
the gap that we're
accessibility.
trying to bridge a little bit too. Is like Emily and I are nurses, nurse practitioners. We have maternal child health nurses and nurse practitioners on our team. Like one of our most widely used features on our platform is the Ask a Nurse message board.
Oh,
because you can post on it 24/7.
As I said, we're going to give it to you.
Reply, yeah.
Because you could have popped that rash on there. Yeah.
Literally. Oh my gosh. The number of pictures that we get of rashes.
You should see my boys' medical shared album with my husband. Like, strange. There's like a picture of someone's butt and balls. I'm like, Joe, this would be awful.
Lots
if
of
people had access to
penises
this. Yeah, like
buttholes.
way too much weird shit on here.
Yeah, nipples.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you can post a question 24/7. You get a response within 24 hours, right? It's not an urgent. Like we're not replacing your pediatrician. We're not. This isn't like an urgent. We'll tell people like you actually need to call your pediatrician about this, right? But it's that everyday like parenting questions where like we can actually support you through those everyday parenting questions as medical professionals who also are parents. Right.
Because there's so many of those where you're like, I want to know, I have a question, or I'm thinking ahead to this next like milestone. And you're just like, I'm not going to call my pediatrician for that.
Right.
But I really want to know the answer.
I know, like we keep a note that we like stock up on questions for the next visit. I'm like, make sure we add that to the note to think about.
But why should you have to wait?
I know.
2 months, 3 months, however long it is, right?
We have we do like live Q&As too. Like we have dads come on the live Q&As all the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which is awesome. Like love seeing partners on the Q&As.
Yeah.
Because that like there were 2 dads on yesterday who were like, all right, so my wife's breastfeeding and this is what's going on. I'm like, all right, great. He's like, all right, thanks. Like, that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, no problem. You know, like there's this element of like, I want it to be for both parents. Yeah. I like not just moms, right? Like, or not just the birthing mom. I want it to be where parents feel safe, that they have a space to come to. Like,
it's a team thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like we could literally talk for hours.
I know.
Where can people get more of you and best support you?
So I feel like if you just want to like, to your point, if you just like our style, want to follow along, like Instagram is the best place to find us at Nurture by NAPS. If you want to actually work with us, nurturebynaps.com is our website.
Do you still offer overnight care, and is that everywhere or just in Boston?
It's just in Boston. Just in Massachusetts.
Most of our services are online and virtual, so we can work with patients all over the country. So prenatal education, feeding and sleep support, peer support groups, and our membership. You don't have to be a member to book a service with us. So like if you just want to book a call with one of us to talk about feeding, or if you just want to join a class, you can. But if you're in the membership, then it unlocks like everything, an insane amount of perks.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
This is lovely.